Hey, welcome to the ultimate tier list for Hearthstone Battlegrounds. So ultimate tier list, what exactly do I mean with this ultimate? Basically, most tier lists only last for like a couple days or weeks until the meta starts changing again. Now this tier list, the goal is that it is relevant for as long as possible and for all ranks. So no matter what rank you are, no matter when you're watching this, unless it's like in a year from now where there's like major buffs and nerfs, this should still be very accurate. Now it's gonna work a little bit different than most tier lists. So most tier lists have like multiple tiers and all the heroes and units are ranked on different things. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm doing heroes and units, so basically everything in Hearthstone Battlegrounds that you need to know. I will not put my stuff into a particular order, so in tier 1 it doesn't matter which one I say first or second. They all will be very close to each other and about the same power level, because I know that in a couple weeks or a couple days maybe one shifts a bit further or a bit back depending on how things swing. So don't care too much about the positioning of how I mention these heroes and units. Another thing is I'll only have 3 tiers to keep things as simple as possible. That is tier 1. This is the broken or really strong stuff that you always need to take when you see it, or if you don't know how to play with these units or heroes, you need to learn them. So this is like the most strong stuff in Battlegrounds basically. Then I have tier 2, which are things that are just good. These are things that you consider very often, things that you also need to learn and know, and things that you pick up more often than other things. And then there is the garbage tier, which is tier 10 or whatever you want to call it. This is just stuff that you want to stay away from, that you don't want to put time into, and that is like super situational. But yeah, that's also important knowing, so you don't get baited too much by the bad things. And then everything that is average or in between, I'm just not gonna mention, because everything that's like okay and all right, there's no real point to giving it a rating and positioning it relative to each other. Just know that these things are okay, they are in the game, they're sometimes picked, they're just not worth the time. And with that all out of the way, let's just get straight into the video. Sorry for rambling on for so long. Let's get started with the heroes. So now tier 1 heroes, these are the strongest heroes for a very good reason. These have been at the top for ages for a very good reason. Starting up with Rafam. Rafam I think is my most played hero, because he has also been around for quite a while. He's a very old hero by now and has consistently been good because of 1 gold hero power that just steals a unit is good. Khotun as well, ever since introduced into the game. At first people were struggling with it, but just press the button every turn and free stats are good. So Khotun has been consistently at the top as well. Hooktusk was broken at first, then she was nerfed like 1 or 2 times, removed from the game. Now she's back and she's again really good. Just make sure tokens are in the lobby. She's not super easy to play, so put the time into her because she's worth it. She makes money, buffs, triples, she can do everything. Omu, the green tree guy, is also just really insane because you get gold while leveling up, so you don't even lose out on tempo while being able to power level, and most metas so far can use this hero power really well. So Omu is also consistently one of the better heroes to play if you know how to power level properly and capitalize of it. Jandiz, I don't think Jandiz needs an introduction. That hero is so stupid. Pogo died for Jandiz and Jandiz was still broken because of tokens mainly. So learn how to juggle tokens, how to get multiple triples out of an early token. Learn what is good with your hero power like Jug, Battlemaster, Armageddon, Murlocs with Bran. So she's so flexible, so good. She doesn't lose out on tempo in the early game even though she's like farming triples. It's kind of insane. Jandiz will always be at the top. And Maiev is arguably one of the best heroes in the game as well. You can get top 8 with him, but a 1 gold hero power to buy units is nutty. So Maiev, one of the strongest heroes. You need to be able to play him. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe, of course, if you want to catch more guides, tier lists, streams, basically anything Battlegrounds related for me. And if you have 1 second to help me out, you could also click the like button. It takes no effort and it helps this video just get promoted. Thank you. On to tier 2, these are heroes that are okay, they're good, they're like above average and they should be in your repertoire. First of all, George, after the buff, 2 gold for a Divine Shield, is pretty damn good because it's very flexible as well. You can do taunt comp with him, poison, and Divine Shield is just great. Look at Armageddon. The main downside is that you lose to a ghoul, but other than that, George is also just very consistently decent. Millhouse, I almost put Millhouse on tier 1 because he is a really good hero, but I think even it's barely tier 2. He is really good, but he can also low roll. So the fact that you can just sometimes roll with a 2 gold hero power and not hit anything and die kind of sucks. You need to hit your triples, you need to know how to play your economy well. He has a very specific and hard playstyle to master, but as soon as you master Millhouse, he is insanely good, one of my favorite heroes. And then Reno, my actual favorite hero. I think Reno is definitely tier 2 because of the flexibility. A lot of people play him wrong, but he is so good because you can tempo hero power if you're weak and just stabilize and get a free top 4. Or if you're greedy, you can get a tier 5 or 6 unit in gold and murder lobbies. Reno is definitely a hero that is worth the practice as well. Sylas has its ups and downs, but so far he has a major upswing, and he has also been consistently fine and overperforming. Well, like not overperforming, but just overperforming compared to the average. Getting tickets, getting free units turns out to be pretty good. Since the buff, like before this buff, he wasn't as great, but right now he's okay. Dog as well, a very old hero, been in the game for ages and just consistently good because you can buy units for 2 gold with a +1/+1 buff. Sure, it's random, but early on you don't really care. You're stronger than other people. You can do special leveling curves. So Yogg is definitely a hero that always sees a decent amount of play in most metas. And Savjz, I included Savjz. It was borderline average to tier 2. The reason I included him is because the high roll potential is so good. Some metas he's good, some metas he's average, but the fact that he does keep on seeing a lot of play, and the fact that he is right now a really good hero because triples are so valuable, he's definitely a hero that you should look into properly. And now the garbage heroes, these are heroes that you stay away from most of the time. These are almost never playable anymore. Maybe in the past they were, but sadly metas changed and new tribes got introduced and new heroes, making these heroes pretty much unplayable unless you see a major buff in the future. We got Shenvala. Shenvala sadly is just like so bad. If you high roll elementals early on, maybe you can use the hero power properly and level up, but if you just don't hit it, it's not like a patches. A patches can generate you pirates. Shenvala doesn't generate you anything. Sometimes it's just a reduction on leveling up, but you have to buy shitty elementals early on. Dino Tamer Bran as well saw a little bit of play with Pogos and when Murlocs were decent, but ever since more tribes were introduced and stronger heroes, he just falls off. He's just almost unplayable right now. Flurgle, there was also a meta where Flurgle was somewhat playable, but right now it just doesn't compare. Again, he's also really hard hero to play. I think one of the hardest heroes to actually master. I remember a lot of people trying to learn Flurgle, myself included, so we played this hero like so many games, and after like 10 or 20 games you finally get the hang of it. It's just not worth it. It's such a hard skill floor and skill ceiling, and you don't get the reward right now and for a while. So Flurgle needs to see a lot of change in order to be playable. Illidan, same story. He has like such good late game potential with double Makar, double cleave or whatever, but yeah, you just don't make it late game with Illidan. He just dies. I think Illidan has been the most consistent, worst performing hero since its release. Pyramid, again, Pyramid was good ages ago. Right now he just sucks because 4 HP for 1 gold doesn't compare to what other people are doing in the lobby. Shudderwalk is Shudderwalk. Curator is like on the edge of being horrible or maybe average. If there's Max and Murlocs in the lobby and you high roll a good Menagerie build, sure, but again, keyword high roll. You need to do really good with Curator, and you kind of get baited by forcing Menagerie and keeping this 1-2 on the board when it might actively make you weaker. So Curator, try to stay away from it as well. Okay, that's it. Now on to units. Tier 1 units, these are units that you like to see in your shop, the units that you like to buy. I'm gonna start off with all the tokens: Elemental, Tidehunter, and Alicad. All of them are insane. You always take them turn 1, or pretty much always. There are some heroes that sometimes don't take tokens. There's very specific cases where it's maybe not the best, but tokens are insane. Their economy, they're just good. Mummy, I'm also gonna include because it is a really good, I think the best tier 1 unit pretty much. It's almost a tier 2 unit. It also starts scaling your board a little bit. Even though it's +1 attack, it turns your shitty units into units that might value trade or trade with tier 2 units that actually kill stuff. So Mummy's really good on tier 1. Spawn of N'Zoth, I think definitely deserves a spot here. Spawn is like the OG good card on tier 2. If you see a spawn, you take a spawn because it just turns your board into this machine that just value trades with every opponent. It's so much stats. If you just have like 4 or 5 units on the board, it already outstats like pretty much everything. So Spawn is great, insane value in tier 2. Same with Ritualist. Ritualist, even if it only gets attacked into once, it is a 4-5. A 4-5 on tier 2. It's pretty damn good. And if it value trades because your opponent has like maybe a Scallywag first, so it attacks twice into the stunt, it turns into a 6-7. 6-7 is insane stats on tier 2. So Ritualist, I think, deserves a spot on here as well. Tough Tusk, ever since Kibler's release, this thing did not get nerfed. It is a 4-3 unit that can get Divine Shield. Like, it's the earliest Divine Shield unit that you can find. A lot of tier 2 Divine Shield units were nerfed or removed from the game completely. Same with tier 1 Righteous Protector, because the Divine Shield are so strong, and this is the first or earliest unit that can get Divine Shield. And it's a 4-3, so if you had a Blood Gem on it, it's a 5-4 Divine Shield. That just blows my mind. That's insane. This should have been nerfed, but it's still in here, so it still deserves to be tier 1, even though Quillboar's got a little bit worse. On to tier 3, Bronze Warden is like one of the best tier 3 cards because it's a 1/2 with Divine Shield, meaning it deals 4 damage to your opponent because it trades twice, and has Reborn, so then it comes back. So Bronze Warden deals a total of 8 damage to your opponent's board, which is pretty damn good. It's a dragon, it is again a Divine Shield unit, so with buffs it's just much better. It's one of the best menagerie targets. It's just Bronze Warden, dude. You just take it. Cyclone, same deal, it's a Divine Shield unit on tier 3. You'll see a trend, most early Divine Shields are good units to pick up because they're the best menagerie targets. It's a 4/1, it also deals 8 damage to your opponent's board, has Wind Fury, the earliest Wind Fury unit. Deflectabot, again a Divine Shield unit, but this is actually the strongest unit I think on tier 3, competing with Bronze Warden, but Deflectabot can get reset, so it gets multiple value trades, so the buffs on Deflectabot are so damn good. And on to tier 4, Module can turn any big pile of stats on a mech into a powerhouse, into a Divine Shield taunt unit. So whatever mech you had around, you just slap a module on that and it's good to stay on the board and be strong. Modules are so flexible, so good, they're like a must for whatever you have on the board that is a mech. Ground Shaker I'm gonna also include because it has so much potential. It's Ground Shaker boards where it's literally just an archetype where you just play some random Divine Shields and cleaves. If you try to stabilize, slap some blood gems onto that Ground Shaker, you're gonna absolutely kill people and get a top 4, maybe even first if you keep it up like that. It's borderline tier 2 because I mean it's not as good as some of the other units, but I've seen it perform miracles, so I think it is definitely something that you want to take up if you have blood gems available and if you need to stabilize or just want to kill people. Mechano Egg is good because it's an 8/8 on tier 4. 8/8 is just a lot of stats. It's again a mech, it's a reset, you can module it. It is one of the best mechs to find over there. And Hydra, let's not forget about the earliest cleave. There's only 2 cleaves in the game and this one is on tier 4. It's a beast, so it's again one of the best menagerie targets. If you can scale this up and bring it into the late game, a Hydra is just like game winning sometimes. Jug, pretty good, right? A +6/+6 is an insane amount of stats. So whenever I have like 3 different types on the board, I always take every Jug I see. It just upgrades your board without having to cycle stuff out. It makes your units more permanent units. It is just one of the best scaling that you can find. On to tier 5, we have Bran. The reason Bran is just so good for the entire game ever since it was released is because it's so flexible. Whatever you play, max, demons, okay, maybe not dragons, but whatever you're doing, you can just fit a Bran on the board and then just exponentially scale. You can do menagerie, you can play Amalgadons with double adapts. Like Brans are so flexible that they almost never hurt to pick up if you can afford to, of course. Unless you're playing a specific build that's looking for specific scaling, but early on you can just, you know, take it. Agam is I think the most broken thing right now. It is just a better Lightfang or Bran. It's just better than almost anything on tier 5 if you have gem generation going. Everything got nerfed for Quillboars, or not everything, but a lot of Quillboar stuff and direction got nerfed, except for Agam, which is a real big problem. They missed the nerf on this. So if Agam gets nerfed in the future and you see this now, I mean, I don't know how good it's gonna be, probably still pretty decent, but right now it's insane. Spore, I'm gonna include Spore because it's just poison, so it can just win games. It can trade with literally a massive Battle Master or a massive Gar or whatever. So the fact that Spore has so much potential and it's just a unit that you pick up and then maybe you find some selfless heroes and you have a scam comp going. It's one of the best units to put into your flex spots because usually you have spots on the board that you use to cycle, to buy buffs and stuff like that. You can just put a Spore in there. It's nice, it's good late game. Spore is good. Phases as well, the flexibility allows you to triple anything on the board if you just roll a pair on it, or if you're looking for something specific and you roll a good unit, then suddenly you have 2 of those. Like Phases, so good, so much potential for high rolling. It's definitely a tier 1 unit. Amalgadon is arguably the best unit to find in the game. Whatever you play, you want to end up with 2 Poison Divine Shield Amalgadons or more if you get a golden Amalgadon and then roll more Amalgadons. But yeah, nothing can replace a full adapted Amalgadon that has Poison Divine Shield and that can even regain Divine Shields with Nadina, that can get literally every single buff in the game that you can buy in the shops. It's just the best. Eliza is an insane tempo unit on tier 6. If you triple into Eliza, you know you're just not gonna lose any fights in the near future. If you find a couple pirates with it, the stats are insane. It can go into Scallywag comp, or you can go into Menagerie or do whatever you find, like maybe find different scaling, you know. Eliza, you just never really feel bad about tripling into it. Caligos has been the most consistent scaling in the game. You just hit a Caligos and if you have some dragons, what the fuck was that? You just don't really hate seeing an early Caligos most of the time. It is a bit on the slower side, so it scales up your board a little bit slower than other things, but it's just super consistent, one of the best consistent scalable units, because you can buy whatever battle cries you find and know that you have scaling for the next coming turns. And that's it for tier 1 units. Now on to tier 2. I know this was a long list. Tier 2 is going to be even longer because there's a lot of good units in the game that you should know about. A lot of units that you want to consider heavily. Start off with Gambler. Gambler, a tier 2 unit that is just good, right? Like there's no actual downside to the unit. You can just buy it even if you plan on selling it later in that turn. Sometimes it has upside because if you have Salty Looter, it's a free +1/+1 buff. Maybe you accidentally roll a triple on it, then that's nice, I guess. Like there's just not really much downside. You can even carry over the gold to next turn. It's just super flexible. Imprisoner is just a good tier 2 unit. I usually take Imprisoners when I see them because it's a 4/4 in stats. It's a taunt, so it can get buffs. It's a demon, so maybe you roll a juggler. It has so many applications. It's just a good, decent tier 2 unit. Same with Kaboombot. It's one of the better tier 2 units. It deals 4 damage, so it probably clears most things on tier 2. Mug is a really early buff that is pretty decent. If you have even 2 tribes, it's already a 4/4 on tier 2, which is pretty good. But if you have 3 tribes, it's the nuts. Just take a Mug. Sorlisk, I think, is a very underrated unit. I feel like Sorlisk can just perform miracles. If I hit an early Sorlisk and I hit like 1 or 2death rattles with it, it's already better than most tier 2 units, maybe even than a tier 3 unit. Like it can just scale so quickly, and then it doesn't even need to stay around on the board. You can sell it later on. It has a lot of potential. On to tier 3, Arm of Empire, I think is so good. It used to be broken when there was like a tempo meta. Just Arm of Empire literally won most lobbies. Right now it's a bit toned down because of the new things introduced and new scaling. If you have a couple taunts, then Arm of Empire never hurts. It's actual permanent scaling now, which turns it into a good unit, and it's a 4/5, so you can even value trade with other units that you find and pick up. So the fact that it has good base stats makes it even better. Bristleback Brood, even though it got nerfed, it is one of the better scaling on tier 3. Like if you compare this to Hangry Dragon just sucks. If you have some blood gems, it gets +3/+3 already a turn, which is really good. And you can even take those stats with Necrolite and put them onto a different unit, so it's also pretty flexible. Iron Sensei, one of my favorite units. It just gives you +2/+2 a turn. It's like a Hangry Dragon, but you know you're gonna get the value, and you buff mechs, so you can kind of target it if you have like 1 or 2 mechs only. And mechs are good because you can get a Divine Shield on them, so that's why I really like Iron Senses. Even if I just have 1 mech on the board. Volvar is one of the better tier 4 units. You'll notice that Divine Shield units, there's gonna be a lot of them on tier 2 as well because they just have good tempo. You don't really hate buying a Bolvar if you're on tier 4 early, because it's a 1/7 with Divine Shield, so it gets to trade twice. If you have 1 or 2 other Divine Shield units, it's really good, it's really strong. So this is just like good unit. Bonker also got nerfed, but a Bonker early on is still fine. Like if it gets to trade at least twice, you get 2 blood champs. It still has 7 HP. It's a Windfury unit. Bonker is good. Draconid, again with the Divine Shield synergy, if you hit an early Draconid with some Divine Shield, it's good tempo. You can just take it for a couple turns and then transition out of it. And Major Domo, good scaling on tier 4, or good if you just roll an early Major Domo with some elementals or with a couple other elementals. It is fine. I don't mind taking it, especially if you have a good unit to buff like a Deflecto or a Hydra or a Cyclone, whatever. It's okay, it's just fine. Kiraji was almost tier 1 because it's one of the most insane tempo units that you can find on tier 4. The stats that it can put out is insane. Like if you buy this and play it, the amount of like spiking that you can get out of it and instant stats is kind of nutty. So that's, I still put it tier 2 because you do have to transition out of it. It doesn't get first places, but it is really good. You definitely just take it if you have a couple taunts to be strong, and then you can level up. Ring Matron is just a really good tempo unit. You just take it to be strong. High Main, exactly the same as Ring Matron. It is just a strong unit that has applications. Like these units can stay into a menagerie because they're just good, even though they're not the ideal menagerie targets. Wildfire Elemental is just kind of like a cleave, so if you want a different sort of cleave, I guess you fit a Wildfire on the board. I don't think it's as good, because if it hits a Divine Shield, you don't get the cleave value, but it has its potential. Bristleback Knight on tier 5 is such a good tier 5 unit. It has Windfury, Divine Shield, which is just 2 really good keywords. Look at Cyclone, but it can even regain Divine Shield with Frenzy. So if it just has some stats, it can attack a total of like 4 times. It has like Deflectobot. If Deflectobot and Cyclone had a baby, this would be an insane menagerie target, essentially. Battlemaster tier 5 is also really good. Of course, if you're falling behind, it's just the fact that you can buy a unit with like 30 HP is pretty good. It's a big spike as well that probably might help you stabilize. Lightfang was almost tier 1, but it also fluctuates really from meta to meta. Right now, it is good still, but it's not an insta pick like it used to be. It's still something that you consider if you have a couple tribes, so definitely don't just look at Lightfang and dismiss it. You definitely still want to take it in a lot of cases, but it's not an instant pick. Don't get baited by it too much. Mama Bear is something that, yeah, if you have a couple beasts in the shop, you can just take a Mama Bear, a couple beasts, you're strong, and then you just figure out what the hell you're gonna do with the rest of the game. It's not really a game-winning composition, but it has also really big spike potential. You don't hate it. I think it's worth tier 2. Sneeds as well, a good tempo unit. Like if you find a Sneeds, you don't mind taking it. It's again pretty strong. I want to tier 6. Maexna I think is just really flexible, kind of like Spore. The reason why Spore is tier 1 and Maexna tier 2 is because Spore is tier 5 unit. The only upside from Maexna over Spore is that it has a tribe, so it can be buffed if you would want to. It doesn't tie to a ghoul, and yeah, most endgame compositions end with like a Maexna on the board, because if you just have Maexna, you can just put it in. It again kills most things. Spoiler is just one of the best tempo units on tier 6. It can absolutely high roll your opponent and just kill them. And Boat, same story. Coiler can summon a Boat though, so that's the difference, but Boat in itself can also summon like an Eliza and just blow up. So these units are also just very strong if you find them. That was a lot, I know, and I want to the final one, and it is the garbage units, tier 10 if you want to call it that way. Starting off at Kindly Grandmother. Dude, I hate this unit so much. I just have a real big hate towards Kindly Grandmother. It is a 1/1. It doesn't value trade with anything, and it summons a 3/2, so it's almost worse than the tier 1 unit. I don't know what it's doing on tier 2. Don't take this card. Ghoul, I am gonna put in garbage tier because you never want to pick up Ghoul. Every time I had to take Ghoul because I had nothing good in the shop, it just backfired. Ghoul is like a tech unit that you want to play in the late game. Late game, okay, Ghoul is fine, but don't take it early. You'll never try to avoid this at all costs. Hangry Dragon, we already compared Hangry Dragon to a couple other units, and yeah, you see why Hangry Dragon is bad now. It is free stats if you win, but even then, it's a 4/4, that's a 6/6. It's just bad. And there's a curse. If you take this card, you're cursed. It's just a fact. Moving on to tier 5. Tier 4 is surprisingly good. Tier 5, Dire Horn. If you don't get the overkill, it's just a 7/7. So you don't really like taking a 7/7 on tier 5. Same with Pagel. Pagel can sometimes high roll and give you some economy, but it's an 8/5. It loses to almost anything that it attacks into because it has 5 HP. And yeah, you don't want to keep this around. It's like maybe something you have for 1 or 2 turns, but it kind of hurts if you spend money on this or if you triple into this. And tier 6, Kangors. Sure, Kangors can spike if you have some good mechs, but Kangors generally doesn't really add much to the board. There's almost no compositions that win with a Kangors, and you need like some really good mechs in order to make Kangors work. Otherwise, it is just worse than a Coiler, for example, or a Boat, or like just stay away for Kangors if you can. And that was it. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Maybe I'll update this in the future if a lot changes. Leave your own thoughts down below though. I want to know if you agree or disagree with some of these picks or what your tier list might look like. That's it. Thank you for watching and good luck on the Battlegrounds.